Been quite successful in his own right as well. Quite a young, successful person, which is nice to see. And what they're going to be talking about today is instalment contracts, which is one of the new things that people have been doing, and it's quite fascinating when you hear people talk about this type of thing. Something I'm really looking forward to hearing about as well. So what they're going to be talking about is how, using instalment contracts, they can actually make £40,000 to £50,000 on every deal. Would anyone be interested in doing that with each deal? Okay, great, that's fantastic. Okay, perfect. So I'd now like to welcome up to the stage Doug Ponsford and Mesud Sali.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much for that kind invitation. Good. Good evening and welcome to Croydon Pin Meeting. This is Mesud and myself. So, in the next 40 minutes, we are going to show you how we're making between £40,000 and £50,000 per transaction. And we're going to show you that. I have to keep looking back there, so excuse me for a moment. We're going to show you how to do that without a deposit, without the need of a mortgage, good, without running a credit check. Can anybody here run through a nice credit check tonight and get a mortgage? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Without finding a tenant, without paying for repairs and voids, without paying for maintenance, and without any experience. So without further ado, my name is Doug Ponsford. I'm actually the host of Seven Oaks Pin Meeting, which is held over at Shoreham. So if anybody wants to join us over at Seven Oaks, you're quite welcome to join us on the second Thursday of every month. As Stuart said, I've been investing in property for about 25 years, and I actually started as an IFA back in the late 80s, and my speciality was as a creative mortgage broker. And during my time as a creative mortgage broker, I learned some very creative financing strategies. And I learned how to buy property without using any of my own money, basically just using the bank's money. So over the years, I've been able to build a multi-million-pound portfolio, which I manage myself today, and that generates an annual income of well into six figures. Now, we had a problem with the banks. They crashed back in, we had the credit crunch in 2008. So we had to find some new strategies that worked without mortgages. So we discovered instalment contracts. They came across from Australia and America. And for the last 3 years, Mesud and I have been using instalment contracts to generate massive profits, and that's helped me to massively grow my portfolio. And as I said, we're generating profits of between £40,000 and £50,000 per deal, which I'm hoping to show you this evening. Over to you, Mesud.
Good evening, Croydon Pin. How are you today?
Good.
Right, let me tell you a little bit about myself. For those of you who haven't heard about me, I'm Mesud Sali. I've been Doug's business partner since 2010, early 2010. That's when we started working together. I come to this country 2005, 29th of August. I'll never forget that day. I had £825 in my wallet when I arrived here, and next day I had to pay the rest of my university fees, £800. When I paid them, I had £25 left. So what do you do when you have only £25 left? Your English is not very good, still isn't. You don't have any friends, you don't know anyone, you're alone, and you're in a foreign country. Well, I said, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to do everything possible, and I'm going to make a lot of money and be a successful person. Since then, I have focused on property full-time. I found the power of property after I attended a few seminars and after I read a few books, and I realized that a lot of people in this country love property. And so for that reason, I said, well, we can make a lot of profits. There is a lot of opportunities here. So I met Doug, like I met you today, in a property meeting. So he was the tallest guy in the crowd. I said, well, for some reason I like tall guys, and I talked to them first before anyone else. So Ross was one of them.
You won't go there.
Right. So I kept bumping into him into a few meetings, and at the time I was trying to buy property the traditional way. It was still possible. I thought that it was possible to get a mortgage, put down a deposit, 5-10% deposit, and you would buy any property. I had a deal. I thought it was very cheap, and I could buy it with a mortgage. I called Doug in his office and said, "Doug, could you get me a mortgage?" He said, "No, man. Those days are long gone. Let's do something else." I said, "Well, I've been to a course and I know quite about this new way of buying properties without mortgages and without deposits. Shall we focus on that?" He said, "Well, I've got about 3 leads which are quite motivated. Would like to come over and we meet the sellers." I came over and we structured the deals. And since then, we've bought and sold over 40 properties, and our lifestyle has changed quite a lot.
Good. So an overview of the evening is that we are going to show you what an instalment contract actually is, and how we are making massive profits from every deal. We're going to show you some real life examples, and we're going to show you how we're buying and controlling property using one single document, a 12-page legal document. And then we're going to show our offer to you and take some questions and answers at the end. So without further ado, Mesud, what is an instalment contract?
Installment contract is
Mesud, what is an instalment contract?
It is not an option, first of all. Many of you'll say, well, it's probably another lease option. Well, it is quite different to an option. It gives a similar way of buying property, similar opportunity to buy without a mortgage and with small deposit. But in this instance, you exchange contracts. It's a legal exchange of contracts. So it's like a standard conveyance. You exchange contracts and delay completion. So it's like a long stop completion. In between exchange and completion, you make installment payments.
Does that mean that when we exchange contracts, we're obliged to complete?
Absolutely. So like a traditional sale, if you don't complete, it costs you money. So it's the same process. Nothing is different. All you do is you receive a payment schedule from the seller to pay it over a longer period of time. So it is the most profitable strategy by far. I mean, we have single lets, we have HMOs, and we have properties that we have bought for long term, but none of them make as much profit as from a single installment contract.
Mesud, why does it make so much profit?
Well, the power is that you receive an upfront payment, higher monthly cash flow than a standard let, and also high back-end profit due to being able to charge a higher price to the buyer.
And the fact is, because we move a buyer into the property and not a tenant, we don't have the headaches of a tenant. And we also, we don't have any problems. If the interest rate rises, then our buyer pays a higher rate, rather than if we have a tenant, we can't instantly increase the rent. So we get rid of the headaches that tenants create. We all like tenants.
Well, in what way is it better than an option? We'll probably ask later on. Option, you're not buying the property and you're not obliged to complete, so it doesn't give security to the buyer, doesn't give security to the seller either. So for that reason, it gives you less profits and more headache, and you're still a landlord that has to issue ASTs and keep renewing ASTs, and the buyer can pull out at any time.
So let's look at how we're doing these deals. We're going to go straight into the first one, which is a property in Station Road. And you can see this is a babysit. So basically what we're doing is we're babysitting the property for the owner. We're babysitting the property, and we're also babysitting the mortgage for him. So we've not taken over the mortgage, we're just simply looking after it. We call it babysitting because it's a better term to use, because we treat it like a baby. So
a gentleman called Glenn called us through our estate agent friend and said, well, I've got this property. It's in a small village in Kent, and I want to get rid of it. I can't afford the monthly payments. I want to move with my in-laws, and I just want the property gone. It has been on the market for the last 12 months with 7 agents, and for £93,000. But you will never sell one bedroom flat in a village for £93,000. But we knew that it's worth between £70,000 to £80,000, and his outstanding mortgage was £83,000. So basically, it was in negative
equity. Anybody know what negative equity is? Only half the room. What about the other half? Do you know what negative equity is, the other half?
Yes.
Good. So this is in negative equity, or virtually in negative. If he sells the property and pays the estate agent, he's going to lose money. He's going to have to put his hand in his pocket to sell the property. So he's happy for us to babysit the property for him, in return that we actually babysit the mortgage payments as well. So the first thing we did, when we had signed our 12-page document with him, we went down there and we started to market the property. So that's our marketing strategy. Took us about an hour and a half to get it on the market. And funny enough, we found a buyer. The reason why we found a buyer is, what does that say on there, Mesud? Because I can't read that without my glasses.
Buy my one-bedroom flat, no mortgage needed, 5,000 moves you in, plus 597 per month, equals flat is yours, Newington, and the phone number.
So does that say 5,000 deposit, moves you in, no mortgage required?
Absolutely.
So how many people in the country today can't get a mortgage? Most of the people, or just a small percentage? Most of the people. So when we market in this property, we're marketing it to most of the people in the country that can't get a mortgage and they haven't got a big enough deposit. That's why an instalment contract is so powerful, because it provides a unique opportunity to a buyer who wouldn't otherwise be able to buy a property. So they exchange contracts, move into the property, 5,000. So we found a buyer who had a bit more money than that, didn't we?
Well, our buyer, instead of coming with 5,000 deposit, because she got rid of her husband and robbed him blind, she had £19,000. Well, so she moved from the family home, and she wanted one-bedroom place for herself, just for herself, no one else. And we managed to agree for her to pay £89,995 over a longer period on an instalment contract. So she moved with £19,000 deposit. So we have to tweak our payment schedule, because we had a payment schedule with 5,000 deposit, and we're planning for greater cash flow. But because we took £19,000 and took all our cash flow up front, well, we said, well, forget the cash flow. We can take only £40 cash flow, and rather than take the cash flow, use all the monthly revenue to repay the existing mortgage down. So we didn't want to put £19,000 down towards paying the negative equity. We wanted to keep that, but use the cash flow from the property to pay the mortgage down. Does that make sense? So,
hang on a minute, Mesud. How much did we pay for this?
Nothing.
How much did we bank?
19.
Thank you. And how much did we make on that property overall after she cashed out early after 8 months?
Well, in 8 months' time, I don't know why, she decided that she could get a mortgage all of a sudden. And she got a mortgage, surprisingly. And she said, well, could you give me a redemption figure? And because when we signed our installment contract, we put a redemption figure, because we knew that she has to be locked in for a time period before we repay ours down to the same level as what she was going to owe us. So we locked her in for 7 years and said, if you cash out before 7 years, if you get yourself a mortgage before year 7, it will cost you £6,000. So that's why we charge a £6,000 early redemption penalty. So if she was going to cash out and we didn't charge the redemption penalty, we had to pay £6,000 out of our pocket. But because we put that, we paid nothing. And our total profits in 8 months, we made £19,000 from a property that we paid nothing for it. It only cost me black pens and yellow signs, nothing else. And a little bit of petrol.
So babysit number 2 is a gentleman called Bob, who was in court this was on a Wednesday, he was in court next Thursday being repossessed, and he only owed £1,800. So GE Money weren't very happy with him because he was £1,800 in arrears, so they was going to repossess him. So we met with him and we said, Bob, if we pay the arrears for you, you can hang on in the property. He was packing his bags to go and move in with his sister, so we knew he had somewhere to go. We said, well, pack your bags, have a bit more time in the property so you can move out under your own steam rather than being thrown out by the bailiffs. And what we do is we babysit your property for you, we babysit your mortgage payments for you, and then we'll redeem the mortgage over the next few years. So that's what he agreed with us. And there's me there looking at the property.
He wasn't only looking, he actually had a wheel around the corner.
So anyway, again, We marketed the property, but this time we put it on Rightmove because we have an account with Rightmove, which enables us to market the property under the deposit amount, not under the for sale price. That's a special arrangement that we have with them.
So we signed a 12-page joint venture agreement with our friend Bob, and we paid £1,800 towards the arrears with GE money, and took over his mortgage payments and agreed for him to move out within a month or 45 days. So he moved out after 45 days, and that gave us a window to look for a buyer. So we found a buyer. We found a family from Dagenham, all the way from East London, moving in Medway Towns in Kent. So they were living in a 2-bedroom flat in Dagenham, and their rent was about the same amount what was the monthly payment on this property. So, but they were living in a 2-bedroom flat with 2 kids, and it was a rather inconvenient situation for them. So they came from Zimbabwe, and they have been in the country for 7 years. But because they were both self-employed, they couldn't get mortgages. So they love the fact that they can buy a house, a 3-bedroom house, and each of their kids can have an individual room, put £7,000 deposit, and have the same monthly payments as they would have down in Dagenham. So they didn't mind traveling because they were social carers, and they could get contracts in different places. So they had that little idea, okay, we're going to buy the house and we're going to probably change our job closer to our new home.
Mesud, how much did we pay for this?
£1,800.
And how much did we got? 7,000 up front. So we paid back the £1,800. So we're in front already. So that's our first bit of cash flow. And then we're cash flowing £250 a month after we make our mortgage payment.
That was last month's cash flow. Actually, GE Money reduced their rate.
The rate's gone down, so that's
now it's
increased
£480.
So if the cash flow is £250 a month, we're going to cash flow £15,000 over the 5-year period that we expect this family to be in there before they go and apply for a mortgage.
Well, that's the question, because I don't quite get it. Sorry.
We'll take some questions at the end if that's right. If you write it down, we'll make sure that all your questions are answered. Otherwise we lose our flow. So we're going to take £15,000 profit over the 5-year period. We would expect this family to go and get a mortgage between 3 and 5 years on average. They will then come to us and pay us a back-end payment of £20,000, which is the amount of money that will be left outstanding after they've made their monthly payments to us. Each monthly payment that they make to us reduces the amount of money that they owe. So the £7,000 comes off the purchase price. Each monthly payment, so much comes off the purchase price, and then the back-end payment is the balance of money that's outstanding when they decide they would like to cash out.
If they were to cash out at year 5, we would walk away with £20,000 back-end. That's the amount we owe to GE Money, and that is the amount they owe us. So the difference is £20,000.
So we made 42,000 profit on this one. In fact, it's a bit more than that because the cash flow has gone up since GE Money put their interest rate down. So we're going to make £42,000 on this property, which cost us £1,800 in the first place, but we soon got that back within a month. We have 0 costs for tenants because the people living in the property are buyers, not tenants. So we're not responsible for the boiler, we're not responsible for the leaky taps and the replacement carpets and fixing the roof when it goes wrong. So let's move on to the third baby sit. We have 3 baby sits and a couple of lemons, which we can talk about.
This is a property in Dartford, again in our area, Kent. So we're just showing you properties that are very close to where we are. So we have deals which are all over the country, but you're probably more familiar with local areas. 2-bedroom house, semi-detached in Dartford. A house from a landlord. Bob, the owner of the property, was a landlord. He has been a landlord for quite a few years, and he didn't like the fact at all being a landlord. I know all of you here enjoy the fact that I own a property and I have a few tenants. That's a very nice feeling, but he didn't like that because obviously...
I don't like being a landlord.
Yes,
some of us don't like it.
So obviously the tenant has caused him some aggravation, and he wanted